Basketball League conference, conference.
The first time we went as the Bunters. We didn't know how it was actually going to be. So the result we saw was what we saw. But now we are a little bit wiser. We don't want to just go and participate anymore. We want to go and compete. Our first option, our first goal, our first target right now is that we must make it out of our group and go to the playoffs. Once we get to the playoffs, yes, anything can happen. I am not going to say we are going to go and win. But our first target and what we are all as a unit trying to achieve right now is to make it out of the group and go to the playoffs in Rwanda.
We think defense is a problem to your team, but from our own non-professional point of view, from what we see. What work are you doing, especially in the defense line of the team?
Well, we have been actually the whole week we have been working on defense. Just like you said, defense is a problem. Nobody wants to play defense. Everybody is interested in scoring because that is what they yell for. That is what they cheer for when the ball goes through the net. So nobody wants to do the hard work, the dirty work of play defense. But I'm lucky that I got a couple of players who are really, really defensive minded, who know that defense is the one that wins championships, not offense. So we have been working on it. We've been paying attention to it up to now.
That's coach of Rivers Hoopers, Nigeria's representative at this year's Basketball League Africa, Coach Ogo Odaldo, giving an opinion about how prepared his team is. He's talking about his team qualifying for at least the playoff. Just before I will get his opinion, I get your opinion, Kingsley, about can this team qualify for playoff where we have defending champions US Monastir, we have AS Douanes of Senegal, and of course the other team as well from Rwanda. He talked about weakness of his team being the defense line. Do you think this is being shored up, defense frailties? A lot of people think that the size of the defensemen for the Rivers Hoopers is not big enough to stand the shuffling and of course the contest for ball at the arc.
Yeah, well, I think for me that's one of their weaknesses, just like the coach has mentioned, and they really have to work on that before the Basketball African League. Of course, at the defense, you expect players who have that very good heights, who have that stamina,
bodybuilders as well.
Bodybuilders, as well.
You cannot be shoved off the ball.
Yeah, in the defense, and River Supers, of course, you take a look at it, they lack this. I think they're very much better when it has to do with the point guard. We've seen some of the players, of course, looking very, very gigantic, of course, and football for the defense. It's been a very little bit of
But we saw a player, one of the American players, Will Perry. No, Will Perry, yes, is a point guard. But we talk Wilkins. Wilkins looks like having some size, good size enough to defend around the basket.
Yes, I think. Weekends, of course, will be an advantage for them at this point in time if they can be able to utilize him, very well. Ogo Daudo, of course, like I mentioned, he's a very good tactician. He knows what he wants at every point in time, and I think for me, he'll be able to utilize weekends and maybe other defenders that will be able, of course, to put up the block, and I think that will go a long way in helping them this time around. For me, I think Ogo Daudo, he has actually put up what he wants before the Basketball African League, and I think the River State government that they've tried the most of the kind, of course, to be able to provide getting those foreign-based players, of course, will cost the team a lot, and I think they really have it in mind that they want to really go far at this time. But he's talked about the playoff, and I think getting to the playoff, of course, should be the target at this point in time. Getting beyond the playoff as well will also be a huge addition, to them.
Rivers Hoopers never got into the playoff of the Basketball League. The only time they did attend, that was in the inaugural edition. And the target right now is to go to the playoff, and from there, anything could happen. The Basketball League in Africa is featuring 12 teams divided into 3 conferences, and 48 matches are expected to be played leading up to the final. And like we mentioned to you, Rivers Hoopers are in the Sahara Conference. The matches start next weekend on the weekend of 4th to the 12th of May. It promises to be very thrilling. We'll follow up with the team, and of course, do give you latest around their preparation. Like we mentioned, 5 foreign-based players have been injected into the squad. Let's see whether they have 1 or 2 foreign friendly games just before they jet out to Dakar, Senegal, venue of the Sahara Conference. That's basketball on the continent of Africa. Let's look at basketball on the international scene. The NBA playoff is here. Of course, you know that the regular season is come and gone. After the regular season, we had the play-in tournament for teams to enter into the number 8 and number 7 and number 8 spots. And Kingsley, I don't know, it looks like Chicago Bulls and the Sacramento Kings fought last, but they couldn't make it into the playoff because they were eliminated, just at the last game, which in the play-in tournament. We saw Miami Heat, take out Chicago Bulls. That was quite a game in the last 24 hours or so. What do you make of it? I didn't expect this to happen, but it did happen. Miami hit 112 points as against Chicago Bulls 91. Chicago Bulls so far this season has shown some kind of resilience, but Miami Heat came again around this time around to stop them at the play-in tournament. Exactly what happened last season. They were stopped by this same Chicago Bulls were stopped by this same Miami Heat, and it happened again consecutive back-to-back.
When you take a look at the game between the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers, that was a very cagey encounter, and you could see that Miami Heat, they really wanted to pull up, and meeting Chicago Bulls, they didn't leave any stone unturned. They were able to get past them. Take a look at the margin, 112 to 91, and as well, despite the fact that they have the absence of one of their key players, talking about Jimmy Butler. The other players, of course, were still able, to rally around, to gather.
Bam Adebayo was fantastic. He was changed to be a guard on the night, and he did just that very well.
Yeah, and in a crucial moment like this, of course, whatever position you're actually being put, you want to do your best, at this point in time. So it was very.
In fact, in his word, he said it was one good day at the office.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, of course, you expect, from Bam Adebayo. And that's what you expect from a player, to be very versatile on a day like that, to be able to, of course, put your team, up front. And a versatile player like Bam Adebayo, that was the man, of course, that, came up, to the party to help Miami. Good one for them. Last season, we didn't see them struggle this way, but we hope that they will be able to.
Last season, they came through the same play-in tournament. They were the number 8 team in the Eastern Conference. Same thing this year. They have had to come in through the play-in, and they have emerged as the number 8 team. So Miami Heat is the number 8 team, and they qualified just about a few hours ago, into the playoff of this year's basketball league in Africa. So in the Eastern Conference right now, we have number 1 team to be Bolton Celtic. They will be in the playoff action in the next few hours from now against Miami Heat in the very first game of the playoff in the Eastern Conference. Then the number 2 team in that group, no doubt, is one which a lot of people follow. New York Knicks. They came second in their group, and they'll be up against Philadelphia 76ers. That's the 7th place team in the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee Bucks, yes, where we have our own Giannis Antetokounmpo. They came 3rd in the Eastern Conference. This time around, they have Indiana Pacers as their opponents in the playoff because they came 6th. Cleveland Cavaliers were 4th. They have to contend with 5th place Orlando Magic in the Eastern Conference. So these are the 8 teams that have emerged at the Eastern Conference. Bolton Celtic, Miami Heat, Cleveland Cavaliers. We have Orlando Magic, New York Knicks, and of course Philadelphia 76ers. Indiana Pacers I mentioned to you earlier. Let's look at the Western Conference. This is where we saw action as well between New Orleans Pelicans and Sacramento Kings. I had thought Sacramento Kings will come in as the number 8 team in that Western Conference, but that was a different idea because they couldn't make up to 100 points as compared to New Orleans Pelicans, who scored 105 as compared to their own Sacramento Kings 85 points. That was a little bit of disappointment for me. I really rather supported Sacramento Kings in this one.
Disappointing performance for the Sacramento Kings side. We thought that we were going to go all the way, of course, in taking of this one, because when you take a look at the performance, in the regular season, of course, you expected them to have gone past the New Orleans Pelicans, but the Pelicans, guys, came to the party in that particular one as we're able to, of course, to gather those points, 105 to 98 at the end of the day. So sad that, Sacramento Kings, of course, didn't make it, to the playoff, this time around. I think last time we were able to see them, they went far, but this time, being cut short, by a team like Pelican start. For me, like you mentioned, a huge disappointment this time around for the Sacramento Kings.
Sacramento Kings bottling at the last minute there at the play-in tournament, and so right now we have New Orleans Pelicans as the number 8 team in the Western Conference. Number 1 team is Oklahoma City Thunders. The Thunders will take on the Pelicans in the first game of the playoff in just about a few hours from now.
Very, very tough, encounter between.
Something interesting about this fixture. This is exactly what happened last season as well. We saw them, in this pairing, at last season's playoff tournament, and it's just happened again. Let's see what will happen in over 7 games and see who qualifies in the group. So that is much we can take on basketball this weekend. You can see it's been a wonderful weekend for basketball. We'll take a break now. When we return from a break, we'll go into football. And talking about football reminds me that Rangers International seem to be tearing away in the Nigerian Premier League. Will they be going back to the continent at the end of the season? Well, and for the Premiership in England, will it be Manchester City or Arsenal or Liverpool? We'll answer that question when we return from the break. Just as we know, some of the other tough games are coming up. It's already settled in Germany, where Bayer Leverkusen has emerged champions. Will Inter emerge in Italy? That question will be answered by Kingsley when we return from the break.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN. From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
Sports Talk here, Weekend Sports Extraordinary here on Atlantic Television Network, and we've talked about basketball, extensively basketball in Africa, having to do with River Super representing the Nigeria at the Basketball League. How prepared they are. 5 players we are told have been injected into the squad. They are working on their defense line according to the coach of the team, and so they're looking very ready in the next few days to hit Dakar, Senegal, venue of their participation in this year's basketball league. And across, we told you as well that in the pinnacle of basketball, the NBA, regular season is concluded. The play-in tournament has been concluded as well. The playoff is with us this weekend, and all of the 8 teams in both the Eastern and Western Conference have emerged and set for action. Now it's time for us to look at the football, and talking football reminds me that this weekend expectation that there will be a new coach for the Super Eagles of Nigeria did not come to fruition after all. Sports Minister Sunday Wang believes that this will be done in the next few days. Speculation still continuing. Sunday, if Emmanuel Amunike has been shortlisted, we equally know that what is his name, Rene Haver has been shortlisted, and a couple of other coaches have been shortlisted, but no one has been named as a substitute coach yet. What could be happening? We need this head coach ahead of the 2026 World Cup qualifier that is here with us.
Yeah, about 5 coaches, of course, have been shortlisted at this point, and Emmanuel Amunike, of course, make that list.
Is the only Nigerian coach on the list?
Nigerian home-based coach at this point in time. No Finidi George, of course, in that particular list. And from what we're seeing at this point in time, it's looking very high. The sport minister has come out to say that they don't want to be in a hurry in appointing a coach due to the fact that they don't want what happened last time of not making the World Cup, to repeat itself. They want to take their time to appoint a coach that will, of course, help the Super Eagles of Nigeria make the 2026 World Cup, which is very important, to Nigerians, at this point in time. The big question is, if Emmanuel Amunike is given the job, will he be able to qualify the team, to the next World Cup? That's the big question at the moment. A lot of glamour that they should bring in a foreign manager at this point in time. And of course, one man that everyone is looking for is the man who has worked with Pep Guardiola as an assistant, talking about Dominic Torrent. He's been an assistant to Pep Guardiola, I think even at Manchester City, before, of course, he left that side. So from what we've seen at this point in time, a lot of glamour from the NFF to appoint him, owing to the fact that he might, of course, gain some level of experience after having worked with a manager like Pep Guardiola. But is that actually the case? Will he qualify the team to the World Cup? Because that's the big task ahead at this point in time. Even Emmanuel Amunike and the rest, can they deliver on this job? Because it will be a huge disaster if the Super Eagles of Nigeria don't make it to the 2026 World Cup that will be coming up soon. If they don't qualify once again, I think Nigerians, of course, would not be happy with the NFF, and that's why they're taking their time to make sure they appoint someone who can do the job.
In the days ahead, the head coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria is expected to be announced, and we'll keep our fingers crossed and hoping that the best choice will be picked for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Preceding this weekend, we saw action in the UEFA Champions League. Kingsley, interesting fixtures, I must tell you, at the UEFA Champions League. What do you make of it? The English teams all suffered. Manchester City, Arsenal, crashed out of the UEFA Champions League, and it looks like for the first time in a long while there will be no English team in the semi-final of the UEFA Champions League.
It's actually a very disappointing one. I think
even at the Europa League as well.
Even in the Europa League, I think it's only in the Conference League we have one English team now, which is Aston Villa. Down there. So I think it's been a long time we saw this kind of thing happen to the English side. Very disappointing outing for them. For Manchester City, for me, luck was not on their side against Real Madrid at Etihad. For Arsenal, I knew it was going to be very difficult for them against Bayern Munich, looking at the fact that Bayern Munich, they have that much Champions League experience, and Arsenal, of course, do not. Despite their form, you don't really give it up to them, of course, to take out Bayern Munich with ease. And talking about the other team, West Ham, they were actually being taken out as well by Bayer Leverkusen, that are also flying very high at this point in time. For Aston Villa, I think Unai Emery knows what it takes, and he has what it takes, of course, to lead them and that's why we're seeing them, flying up this point in time. And for this, the consequences, the fact that the opportunity of the English, teams, having their fifth team next time in the Champions League has been cut short at this point. Only if Aston Villa, of course, will be able to skate through to the final, and hope that I think the other German team and the Italian team, of course, will lose their game. That's when, of course, they will have that chance of having a fifth team in the UEFA Champions League at this point in time. For me, it's a very huge setback. It's been a long time. I think I'm stepping up, that game, and that's why we're seeing this happen at this point in time. It's really disappointing outing for them this time around at the continent, and we hope that Aston Villa, might just go all the way to salvage and to, of course, take away this huge embarrassment for the English Premier League teams. Well,
English teams are having a torrid time. They're losing their spot right now to Italian team and the German team. We hope that they'll find a way to come back. It's been a bad season in Europe for the English teams. We've seen German teams, do well. Italians do well as well this time around. With only one English team left in the Europa Conference League. But we're running out of time, so we'll have to be a little bit fast this time around, Kingsley. With just about 5 games of thereabout to end the season, we are at the business end of the league, especially in football. Let's start in Nigeria here. Rangers International lead right now on the log. If the league were to end today, Rangers International will be winners. Can they take it all the way to the end of the season?
I think Rangers, of course, they have what it takes. When you take a look at, the momentum on ground, at this point in time for them, they don't want to leave any stone unturned. Fidelis Electrical, since he took over the helm of affairs, this is 4th season, and he has been able to, of course, take them to this height. This weekend, they will be national against Rivers United, and that's a very tough encounter at the Doke Mesimaka, stadium. Of course, that place is a slaughter ground. It's always difficult for you to come and take all 3 points, at the Doke Mesimaka stadium. The big question is, can Rangers, get all 3 points at the Doke Mesimaka stadium to keep their title chase, alive this time around? That will be, of course, how it's going to look. That's going to be one of the games, of course, that will give them, that goal, in terms of, chasing for the title this time around. For what we're saying, Rivers United are also looking for the 3 points because they have about 6 outstanding games and so many other games as well to play in order for them to stay aloof of relegation at this point in time. So for me, for what we've seen from Rangers, looking very formidable and also looking very optimistic of the title, I think they have it in their hands. Whatever happens, I think they should be held responsible if they don't actually take it up this one, because I see them to be the most serious team this season in the Nigerian Premier Football League.
Rangers International are back and they're looking very strong ahead of the end of the season if they continue. This weekend we are told that matches have been postponed in the Premier League here in Nigeria for Rivers United to finish up with their outstanding games, and that
will be
next week. And so definitely it will be interesting to see how it pans out. But at the Doke Mesimaka Stadium, it will be Rivers United up against league leaders here in Nigeria, Rangers International. Let's quickly now go to Europe, and Kingsley, the pressure is on in the Premiership in England with the outstar of Manchester City and Arsenal from the Champions League. Emphasis now is on who wins the league. Will it be Liverpool that stumbled in the last fixture, or will it be Manchester City that is presently leading on the league table?
It's going to be a very tough one, taking a look at the title race, at this point in time, in the Premier League. Manchester City stay top, and of course, there are 2 points, above Arsenal, who are second. Liverpool are third on the log. The same point, of course, with Manchester, with Arsenal, just goal difference, separating both teams at this point. It's talking about Arsenal and Liverpool. So for me, I think Manchester City, looking at the fact that they've been ousted, that they've actually ousted them from the UEFA Champions League, they will be doing everything to make sure that they win the Premier League this time around. And if they win this time around, it makes it, the 4th time they will be winning the Premier League in a row, and that's, of course, you will see a very impressive record for Manchester City as it is. So for me, they have a lot to achieve in winning the Premier League this time around. So I don't think they want to let this one, slide. For Arsenal, I'm not really seeing Arsenal, of course, really having that strength anymore. Taking a look at the last 2 games, they lost to Aston Villa and going down to Allianz Arena as well, to lose again. Arsenal, at this point in time, I think their morale is a little bit down. The players need a lot, of course, to be able to fight for the title, as it is. So sad for Arsenal after all they've done so far this season, and this is where, of course, they find themselves. If they can't win the Premier League title, I think it will be a disappointing season for me, for Arsenal. For Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp, his last season, in the team, can he possibly, of course, win the Premier League? I think is a very tall mountain at this point in time. Taking a look at the intensity so far, in the league, and we thought, of course, that we're going to go all the way, in the Europa League, but also Atalanta, kicking them out, in the Europa League as well. They've won the Carabao Cup. They were actually going in for, the Premier League. They're going in for the Premier League this time around, but it looks a bit difficult for them to get this one. So, for what I'm seeing so far, I think City are on a very good ground. Even when you take a look at the remaining games, you give it up to City that they have, advantage, taking a look at their, next opponents, as it stands. So for me, I think Manchester City, of course, they're in a very good position to win the title.
From England, we quickly have to go to Spain, and in Spain, Real Madrid has an 8-point gap between them and FC Barcelona. Can anything stumble, cause Real Madrid to be knocked off the pinnacle of the table this season in the La Liga?
Nothing at this point, because this weekend there will be a Clasico between Real Madrid and Barcelona. And if they win that one, the title, of course, they've taken up the title, at this point in time. So it's going to be a very tight one, because Barcelona will not want, Real Madrid, of course, to win the title in their hands. They want to fight all the way. Xavi Hernandez, of course, his last season at Barcelona, he wants to at least, put up a little bit of, performance. We know all is lost. There's nothing for him to achieve anymore this time around. Looking at how they were being ousted out from the UEFA Champions League against Paris Saint-Germain. For me, I think Carlo Ancelotti has done it again this time in Barcelona. I don't think nothing will stop Real Madrid from not winning the La Liga title this time around. And I think for me, Barcelona, of course, they didn't do well. Last season, they won the title, and this time around, they're letting it go. For me, not a very good one. And for me, it's actually a very disappointing one. I expected, the management of Barcelona to have given Xavi Hernandez the needed support, but I think the man, of course, is not happy that he's not getting the necessary support, and that's why he's leaving the team. But kudos to Real Madrid. They get the win, of course, this weekend. They will be pulling through in terms of winning the La Liga title. Across
to Italy, it is Inter Milan that leads AC Milan by 4 points gap. Is there any expectation from AC Milan of toppling Inter at the end of the season?
I think when you take a look at it, Inter Milan, they look very formidable, and it's going to be difficult, a little bit difficult for AC Milan, to close that gap. Though it's not a very huge margin, they still have some couple of games, and for me, I think Inter, they really have what it takes, to leave the title this time around. When you take a look at the performance of the team, they've really stepped up their game since I think the last two seasons. I think they won the title last 2 seasons, but after last season, they've not been that fantastic. But this time around, I think Inter, they've gotten their mojo, and they have what it takes this time around. It's going to be a little bit challenge from AC Milan, but when you take a look at the way Inter Milan are playing, of course, you give it up to them.
It is a 10-point gap between Paris Saint-Germain and the Brest in the Ligue 1 in France. It looks like it is done and dusted for Paris Saint-Germain to win the league this season in the French top flight.
Of course, you call it the Farmers League. Paris Saint-Germain always dominating season in, season out. It's not a very difficult one for them, apart from the year where Lille gave them a very tough time. But since then, they've been very fantastic. If you take a look at it, they're the best team in the French Ligue 1, and for what we've seen so far, I think it's really been an impressive ride for Luis Enrique. His fourth season, he's of course getting to win the Ligue 1, and as well also winning the UEFA Champions League. You will see a very good season for Luis Enrique once he stands there in the semi-final of the UEFA Champions League. They can possibly get to the final, maybe lay their hands on it, for the very first time. We'll just keep our fingers crossed on that. But for me, it's been a very impressive first season for Luis Enrique, and for Kylian Mbappe, who is also looking forward, to get everything he wants looking at the fact that he'll be leaving at the end of the season, I think is also another morale booster for the team. So for me, I don't think there is much, of course, to contend down there in the league is for Paris Saint-Germain.
Paris Saint-Germain are most likely to win the league in the French top flight this season. And just we're looking at the top 4, top 5 across Europe. And in Germany, it is done and dusted already. As at last weekend, we've seen Bayern Leverkusen win. And they did not just win, they've done the job with 44 games unbeaten this season. Xavi Alonso, first time as a head coach of a top side in Germany, winning what no other coach has been able to do in 120 years.
Impressive feats, of course, for Xavi Alonso. No one saw that coming. Of course, just like you mentioned, an inexperienced manager coming up to put up, that particular feat. I tell you, is not an ordinary feat. You must give it up, to Xavi Alonso. His tactics has really been, what everyone should study at this point in time. When he actually came down to, Bayer Leverkusen, I think 1 or 2 seasons ago, he met the team, of course, in the 17th position, and he was able to finish in a comfortable position. And heading down to this season, he's now been able to win the league, of course, for them. I think it's a very huge one for Xabi Alonso. He actually has said he wants to remain in the team, and we'll keep our fingers crossed and see if he can possibly replicate this feat, in the coming season. For me, it's a very huge one for Xabi Alonso and Bayer Leverkusen.
Well, that will be it in football. But just before we wrap this weekend, it's been an interesting week, especially in the continental football, the CAF Champions League semi-final. We've seen TP Mazembe, force or just play a goalless draw with Al Ahly of Egypt. That is a very big one. A return leg fixture comes up in Egypt. Let's see whether TP Mazembe will be able to survive it after playing a draw. We have to wrap it up now, but we can't do that without bringing you a sports extraordinaire for this weekend. It couldn't have been any other person than Tunde Onokaya, the man who has now become the longest chess marathoner